If it is.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's a new week. It's Monday, June the 5th, and that means, like every Monday, I am joined by my buddy and great handicapper in his own right, Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ross, and it was an eventful weekend. The hockey game was interesting in its own way. The basketball certainly was interesting yesterday or last night on Sunday night, I should say. And baseball had a lot of, I guess that as they say now, the only description, that's baseball, because that seems
Yeah.
to be what the story is now in the sport. So it was very interesting and entertaining, and looking forward to another excellent week coming up.
Yes, myself as well. I need to bounce back with all sports. I had a little bit of a loss last week because of baseball, but the NBA playoffs, they just keep rolling, Doug. 40-22 since the postseason began, and that includes winning my last 6. So that's 65%, and I'll take that every day and any day, and I know you would as well.
Absolutely.
Like you always like to say, when you're going that good, I can't explain it. Other than the fact that I've been locked in, so
Yeah.
you know how that goes.
What did you have yesterday?
I had Miami plus the
Yep.
points.
Okay.
So
I had it on a small play, but yeah.
Yeah. So hey, you got to give the Heat a lot of credit. They're a very, very resilient team. They got off to that great start and they went down 15. It wasn't looking too good, but they bounced back, Doug. A lot of good character on that team, tough mentality. And it's not all about Jimmy Butler, because once again, he went under his projected point total, but he did play a great game. He had his fair share of assists. But you can't say enough about guys like Duncan Robinson and Gabe Vincent, and then Max Strauss, who was 0 for 9, I believe, from three-point range in her first game, bounced back, right?
Yeah, he did. Here's an interesting number. I actually found this today, or you might have seen it as well on Twitter. So far in the playoffs, Miami, I might be off a point or two on this, but Miami has been outscored by 1 point in the first quarter. They've been outscored by 12 points in the second quarter, excuse me. They've been outscored by 20 points in the third quarter, and they have outscored the opposition by 90 in the fourth quarter.
Is that right? Wow.
Yes.
Wow, that's an interesting observation. I would have never guessed that in a million years. And I've been watching the NBA postseason religiously.
Yeah.
But great stuff, man. That's a real good tidbit to throw out there to the people out there. If you're a live bettor, especially if you like live wagering, you might be able to catch a nice situation with the Miami Heat, yesterday. I mean, again, they were down 8 at the end of 4. Or at the end of 3, excuse me. And they win the game by 11, I think.
Right. They outscored them by 11, 36-25. And that was also an important number, because if you were, what side you might have been on the total.
Oh, yeah.
61 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So that was also, I had no action on it, but I noticed it right away, because I knew some people that did, and they had the over, and they were fortunate. Let's put it that way.
Well, if you've been following us on this podcast, you've been doing a tremendous over the last 11 or 12 weeks now. Me and Doug, we taped on Thursday for Friday Major League Baseball. We went 2-0. Myself, Jesse, and Sean. Jesse had in game 2, he gave out Jokic to go over his point total, Jimmy Butler to go under his point total. Both of those cashed. Sean had the over 216. Doug just touched upon that. A little bit of a tough way to go about it, but it was done. And then I had Miami plus 8.5, who won the game outright. So 4-0 there, 2-0 with me and Doug on Thursday with our Major League Baseball video. Folks, we just keep cruising along here. All you need to do, if you haven't done so already, is subscribe. You see a WC icon right there in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Click on that. A subscribe button will come on up. Excuse me. Hit subscribe, and then while you're there in your YouTube settings, click on that notification bell. So when we put up any of these sports betting podcasts here on our Winner Circle Sports Betting channel. You'll be notified immediately because right now we're not airing live, Doug, but we're going to be airing live, Doug, very soon. So looking forward to that as well. Doug, any interesting topics of conversation having to do with the sports betting world?
More observations, and obviously feel free to just jump in whenever. I was kind of the opinion that New York Mets, after they swept Philadelphia last week, that they might finally get it going. So what do? They get swept at home by Toronto. Okay, I mean that's just nuts that they just flipped it like that. Now, is Toronto better than Philadelphia? Yes. But still, I mean, just at home, that was crazy. St. Louis now lost 7 out of 10, got swept by Pittsburgh, and in the last 10 games, scoring 2.4 runs per game. Now, a big part of that is their outfield, Ross, is just wiped out. Okay, they're playing basically all reserves in the outfield, and teams are pitching around. They're 2 studs. So it's a tough situation. But I mean, they're back in last place again, and we're 60 games in, okay, to the season, and we talked about it briefly, but the White Sox swept Detroit, okay, and in 2 unusual fashions to cover. One was if anybody hadn't seen it, it's available. If you even want to go to my Twitter account, you can at Doug Upstone. The pitch and runners, I think the bases were loaded this Saturday at the bottom of the ninth, and the catcher gets crossed up. The umpire takes one in the face, right in the mask, bounces off, run scores. Yeah. And that was the first game since 1920, the live ball era, to where 3 runs were scored either by a pass ball or a wild pitch. Okay, had never happened before then. So that was wild. And then yesterday, Chicago hits a grand slam in the bottom of the ninth, okay, of a 2-2 game to win. So, I mean, the White Sox stink, but for 3 days, they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, and it's not like Detroit's not Detroit of the last couple of years. They're very competitive. Boy, that one Saturday stung. I had Detroit plus 140 in that game. That actually went 10 innings, and that sequence of events that Doug just described happened in the bottom of the 10th. So, I mean, all 3 runs came in by a wild pitch. But from my standpoint, I lose the game 2-1, and both of the White Sox run come via a wild pitch. So, tough way to lose. And then yesterday, Arizona, I know I tell you how good I'm doing in the NBA playoffs, but I backed Zach Gallen yesterday from Arizona. He gave up a few runs yesterday, which is unusual for him, especially at home. And Arizona up 5-3. It was 5-4, 2 outs in the 9th, bases loaded. And lo and behold, they give up a grand slam and lose the game 8-5. But, you got to take the good with the bad. You win some like that, you lose some like that. Even though Doug will tell you, no, that's not the case, Ross. You lose.
It is not the case, but I'm doing much better. Okay, I think my therapy is working, Ross. That from that standpoint, so I'm handling this much better of late. And I also had Arizona. And here's the only thing I wondered about that game, and I looked it up afterwards. The closer that came in, honestly, I forget his name, that they brought in. Okay. I thought, you have to pitch him sometime. I get it, but he hadn't pitched in a week. And how do you not use your closer in a week? Okay. Yeah. I mean, you find an inning. And and I really like the Arizona manager. I'm not saying Lovella's not a good manager. I'm not saying that. It just was surprising because, he walked one guy. I think it was the first batter. And, and then and then he was like this close. I mean, literally it was one pitch away from the game being over. And it was one pitch being over going the other way for both of them. Yeah. From that standpoint. But I just thought that was odd I know it happens, but I think as a manager, you always try, if this is your guy, you always look to avoid it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, either you're getting blown out all the time or you're blowing teams out all the time. Arizona's been on the right end of a lot of games over the last month. So I would say it's more likely most of the latter. And the bottom line is that Doug's right. I mean, we've seen this so many times. A team will be up 8-0, but because their closer hasn't pitched in 4 or 5 days, you get them in for an inning. And most times in that, when a closer gets thrown into those types of situations, he's not very effective.
No.
And there's just something about the mental makeup of closers that if the game's not on the line, they become a little lax. But the only thing I could think of, Doug, is because, I know you're high on Torey Lovullo as a manager, and I think he's a terrific manager as well, considering what he has to work with. And in the division he's in with the Dodgers in San Diego, and I would think that maybe the guy was banged up a little bit or was ailing a little bit. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything, and I honestly didn't go back and look because I was like, once I saw that, I thought that's enough of that. And
Yeah.
so, but I did look up that he hadn't pitched in a week, and so I thought, well, okay. So yeah, I'm curious enough though to go now that we're talking about to go back and look it up. But it doesn't matter. He gave it up, and
It is
whatever.
what it is. Yeah,
Yep.
it's the result is in, and you live with it, whether it be good or bad, and you move on to the next day. Even though sometimes that's tough, but when we've been doing this for a long time, so we're conditioned, doesn't mean that for that short period of time we don't get a little upset with that type of result. And
Absolutely.
in any event, the Stanley Cup Finals. I know by the time some of you out there view this video, the game might be completed, and some of you not. So, but it's worth discussing. Las Vegas 5-2 in game one, game that was a lot closer than the final score would indicate. Florida was a little unlucky in that game. They hit the post 4 times, Doug. They had 36 shots on goal, hit the post 4 times. So it's not like they played bad. And one of the goals came on an empty net when they pulled the goaltender for an extra attacker down 4-2. But your thoughts? I mean, I thought it was a very entertaining game. I give Vegas, I'm not taking anything away from Vegas. I'm not saying that they didn't deserve to win, but it's certainly, when you look at a 5-2 final score, you think it was a pretty lopsided game, but that wasn't the case. It was 2-2 going into the last period. Las Vegas just buckled down in the last period and got it done.
Yeah. The thing I came away with two things I came with. The thing number one is I didn't see the same energy, even though the score was 2-2. I didn't see the same energy that I had seen from Florida, in prior games. So now, whether that is how Vegas played and or having 9 days off, I'm probably more likely to go with the latter. So I would think that the energy level will be better. And then the other thing that was a big factor in the game was the man advantage for both teams. Is that I think Florida was like in the 90 plus area for killing penalties in the playoffs. They took 7 penalties, and some of them were not great.
Vegas
and they gave up 2 goals.
Yeah.
And then the penalty killing for Vegas has been lousy. That's been in the I think not upper 60s, I think in the middle 60s so far. And Florida had 3 opportunities and didn't score any of them on any of them. So those are the 2 things. I think game 2 is going to be, really fascinating, and all the pressure's on Florida, to win, much like it was on Miami to come up with a big performance yesterday. And I wouldn't be surprised if Florida does come up with a big performance tonight, to tell you the truth, Russ.
Yeah, I know that you like that system, and Doug did mention it when we did the NHL Stanley Cup Game 1 on Friday. That Doug mentioned. He says, I'm going to go with Florida. I'm going to make a small play on them as an underdog. If they lose, I'm coming back with them in game 2 with a more sizable bet. Okay. And, you can't disagree with that when you get 2 really good teams like this. It's tough to beat real good teams that have been hot like Florida 2 games in a row. And again, I agree with Doug. I think the lack of energy from Florida was a combination of I think it was a combination of both. How good Las Vegas played and that layoff. No excuses tonight, though. No layoff. No. You're down 1-0, and the goaltending has to be better. Sergei Bobrovsky, who was having a magnificent playoffs, was not sharp in game 1. He got beat with some shots that I think that he would have wanted back. On the other hand, like I said, Florida was a little bit unlucky, hitting the post 4 times. And also, was it Sam Bennett that missed that golden opportunity
Yes,
when
I think so.
Aiden
Yeah.
Hill came across, and I mean, an easy tap in, he tried to feather it in, and Aiden Hill come flying across with a stick to make the save. So anyway, game 2 tonight, Doug. Looking forward to it, like I know you are. But we're here to talk baseball today, and those of you who've been following us with these Major League Baseball videos, me and Doug, we've been knocking it dead, man. We've been killing it. So let's get her going. I mean, Doug is going to be discussing the Houston Astros and the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm going to be looking at the Baltimore Orioles at the Milwaukee Brewers. But let's start with Doug here. It'll be Hunter Brown for Houston, scheduled anyway, and Kevin Gausman for the Toronto Blue Jays, 7:07 p.m. Eastern time from the Rogers Center in Toronto. What do you got, Doug?
Well, this will be game 2 of the series, and it's got your favorite starting time. I also want to just throw that in just for fun. And this one, Astros have heated up coming into the series. Won 7 of their last 10, but really haven't had any luck because they haven't made up. In fact, they've lost ground to Texas. Okay, in their division. Now, Hunter Brown's gonna toe the slab in this one. He's 5-2 with a 3.61 ERA. He might be worth a look, by the way. Check this out on Tuesday. Strikeout prop. If it's over under 6.5, I'd take a serious look at it. Check the odds, but he's averaging 1.18 strikeouts per inning, and his past 4 starts, he's had at least 8 strikeouts. Okay, per game. So that's something to keep in mind. On the road, he's been super. 4-0 on the road. Houston, when in those same starts, is 5-1. And he's only allowed a 235 batting average on the road, which is 25 points lower than what he is actually at home. Now, Toronto, I mentioned about with the Mets, they've also regrouped. They've also won 7 out of 10. They've gotten out of the AL East basement. They're within 2 games of the Yankees for 3rd and within 5 games of Baltimore for 2nd. Now, the Blue Jays come to this one. They're going to be, last I saw, Ross was minus 135 favorite with Kevin Gausman on the hill. Now, though Gausman's only 4-3, his ERA is 2.76. That's outstanding. Okay. His whip is 1.12, and his strikeouts per inning is even better than Brown's at 1.33. The other thing about Gausman, he doesn't beat himself. His strikeout to walk ratio is better than 5-1, and his batting average allowed at home 0.206. Okay, outstanding again. Now, Brown has allowed 3 runs or less in 5 of his last 7 starts. Gausman, he's done this. He's in those same amount of starts. He's held the opposition to 6 times under 3 runs. Right now, Ross, I'm seeing a total of under 8.5. It's juiced at 120 at the moment. I believe by Tuesday morning that's going to fall to 8. So if you are liking what I'm talking about here, I would suggest to get the under sooner than later. I'm not opposed to taking the under at 8. Okay, for those of you that don't see this video, till sometime Tuesday, and I do trust that both bullpens will clean up what's left over. I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if both pitchers pitch at least 6. Both starting pitchers pitch at least 6 innings and go into the 7th. I'm going to side with the under, Ross. Got Houston 40-22 under against an American League starting pitcher who has a whip of 1.20 or lower. And the most important thing besides that number is in those 66 games, the average score of those games has been 7 total runs. Okay. With that, so let's go with under 8.5 with Toronto and Houston. I'm going to also recommend like I said, with Brown at 6.5 under for strikeouts. And I'll even toss in one more, just because I'm a heck of a guy today, is to look at, if you got the right odds, take the under 0.5 for runs scored in the first inning.
There you go. There you go. From Doug Upstone. That's a lot to absorb, but we'll go over it again. Again, Doug likes the under 8.5 in the game. He likes Hunter Brown to go over 6.5 strikeouts.
I'm sorry. Did I say?
You said under. Yeah.
Over. If I said under, it's for sure over.
That's correct. Okay. Sorry. Over 6.5, because your analysis was clear to me that you wanted the over. So Hunter Brown over 6.5 strikeouts in this game to go under 0.5 run in the first inning. 3 different options for you. The main one that we're going to focus in on is the under 8.5. I agree. I mean, There's not a hell of a lot I could add to that other than the fact Kevin Gausman over the last 5, a 1.36 ERA and an 0.53 whip. The guy's been unconscious. Doug touched upon that. Hunter Brown, 5-1, and his team starts on the road with a 3.28 ERA, 1.12 whip. Those are really good numbers. Gausman 3 versus Houston in 2021. He struggled a little bit against Houston. That's the only thing that bothers me. But both bullpens, like Doug touched upon, over the last 7 games, Houston a staff ERA of 2.02 and Toronto a staff ERA of 1.96 and a whip of 0.74. Certainly makes a lot of sense to me. Hopefully it does to you too. And you know what? That's all Mr. Upstone's been doing on a consistent basis over the last 3 months, has been giving you winners here. So why not follow that play? Houston and Toronto to go under the total of 8.5. I'm going to look at the Baltimore-Milwaukee game. Miller Park in Milwaukee, Doug's old stomping grounds at one time, a long time ago, but it was a stomping grounds at one time.
It was.
Yes.
In fact, just so you know, Ross, it's even changed hands. It's now American Family Field.
Oh, is that right? So it's not Miller Ballpark anymore?
Miller Park is gone because when Miller signed up with Coors, they decided to end that relationship.
Oh.
And so it's American Family Field. So
yeah,
please take note.
There's a big difference between naming a ballpark after a beer and then call it an American Family Field. What a discrepancy. Well, anyway, hey, whatever the case may be, the game's being played in Milwaukee, your old stomping grounds.
Absolutely.
So it is Kyle Gibson for Baltimore, who's slated to go, and Freddie Peralta for the Milwaukee Brewers. Freddie Peralta has shown poor form over his last 4 starts with a sizable 7.32 ERA and 1.83 whip. 1.83 whip's pretty high. And quite frankly, even though it's 7.32 is terrible, it could be much higher with a whip of that proportion. And here's the big thing over those last 4 starts. He's allowed 6 home runs in just 19 1/3 innings pitched. Milwaukee has, they have a game on Monday, but Baltimore is off. So we are recording again, folks, on Monday, June 5th. These games are on Tuesday, June 6th. And Baltimore is off today, but Milwaukee will be playing tonight. So a little bit of an advantage there in terms of rest, especially Milwaukee will be playing on the road tonight and then traveling, while Baltimore coming off that series at San Francisco with a day of rest and travel should be in good shape going into that game. And Milwaukee, by the way, 0-3 in their last 3 games this year when facing an opponent coming off a day off, and they were outscored in those 3 games 16-8. Kyle Gibson, very good form over his last 3, a 1.83 ERA, a 1.07 whip. And since last year, Gibson 7-1 in his team starts on the road versus teams with a winning record like Milwaukee currently possesses. One more thing, Baltimore 20-10 on the road, Doug. Actually much better on the road than at home where they're just 17-12. Also 25-10 at night. This is a night game. Why do I mention that? Because they're only 12-12 during the day. So there's some interesting dichotomies right there for you. Baltimore's also 8-1 in their last 9 this year as an away money line underdog of between plus 100 and plus 139. Right now, as we speak, they're plus 110 over at DraftKings. And Baltimore, by the way, I just said they're off they're going to be coming off a day off. 6-3 following a day off this year. So I'm going to go with Baltimore here, Doug. The Baltimore Orioles is a short underdog here, plus 110. If they go to a small favorite, if they go to even money, or they go up beyond plus 110, I like them whatever way it comes out. So I'm going to take Baltimore plus 110 officially over the Milwaukee Brewers, Doug.
Yeah, Baltimore is just it's a better team. Okay, yeah. just flat out. Milwaukee has they have trouble scoring. I mean, the only thing they don't really have problem with is Cincinnati, who they're actually playing tonight. I think they're 17 17-5 since last year, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if they're 18-5 by the end of tonight. So yeah, Milwaukee's not a particularly good team. It just their lineup has holes. Peralta, he's been really mediocre, as you mentioned, and can't throw strikes, giving up too many hits. Plate coverage is just awful. Okay. He just can't spot the ball where he needs to. So Baltimore is the better team, and I don't see any reason why they don't win the game on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and that leads me to this, Doug, to ask you, because we discussed this a few weeks back, but the NL Central, it's almost going to, it's starting to look like who's going to win this by default. And St. Louis looked like they were going to come on and wake up. And now, like you just touched upon earlier in the show, they've reverted back to how they started the season. And, they got Adam Wainwright going tonight. And since he's returned from injury, he's been a shell of himself, Doug. You know what I mean? You got to think that he's either at the end of the line or he's about to turn around real soon. We'll give him a few more starts to determine that. So
yeah, at 41, I don't think there's a bright future ahead, to tell you the truth. From that standpoint, and I'm surprised he didn't retire after last year. When they had the big thing where him and Pujols and the catcher's name escapes me.
Molina.
Yes, their longtime catcher. So I'm surprised he didn't retire then, but he didn't. He came back. I guess he felt like he had something to prove. Still, at best, he's a fifth starter at this point of his career. So no, I don't know. I think it's a team in trouble. They do need to get healthy. If they can score some runs, but their pitching just isn't. I don't think it's good enough. But in that division, I don't know whose pitching is going to be good enough between that and their counterpart, the AL Central, Ross. I mean, 86 wins could do it in either division.
Well, I can tell you what, I would not be shocked if the AL Central produces a division winner that has a losing record, because, I'm not sold on Minnesota. It leave a lot to be desired there. Who else is going to contend in that division? Detroit is a nice story so far, but they're not ready to take over a division at this point, but they're in contention. Kansas City's is absolutely brutal. Who am I missing? Chicago White Sox. Yes, they're coming off a good series, but like Doug touched upon, little false sense of hope for their fans because they're still terrible. So anyway, all right. So there we have it. Doug likes the Houston Astros and the Toronto Blue Jays to go under the total of 8.5. What am I missing? Hunter Brown over 6.5 strikeouts for the Houston Astros, and the game to go under a half a run in the first inning. And I'm making it simple. I'm going to just stick with one play. Mr. Upstone, he's just rolling along here. So let him throw out as many as he wants, and let's keep making the money. But I am on the Baltimore Orioles plus 110. There you have it, folks. We got a couple minutes left here. Doug, tell the folks what you may have coming up this week, what you're looking forward to, and any hot streaks you would like to share with the audience.
Well, we'll start in Major League Baseball. Last week, Thursday, when I was talking, I said, I just had a sense that, some things were starting to change. Well, that's been the case. 7-3 since Friday, or since Thursday, 7-3 since Thursday, up $1,750. I've had 4 different bets in the last 6 days, hit all of them. Okay, so that was good, highlighted by the Rangers yesterday in a blowout win. So that's been very good. And just, like Ross talks about being dialed in, with his NBA picks, I'm starting to get that, when you sit down in your chair and you start looking at the stuff, it's making a lot of sense right now. So that's what I'm hoping to do, is just continue that. I got a couple plays on Monday night, but primarily, everything's just going to keep rolling here, and just the idea is just to keep it all going. NBA still doing well, 19-12, 40. That's a little over 61%. 49-33. Okay, on those. Ross's favorite, USFL. Well,
Gimmick football, baby.
Went 2-0 this weekend, 3-0 run. So so things are going well there. So look into week 9 already from that standpoint. And big plays, NHL continue to do well. And there's either going to be a big play in game 3 or 4. It's just a matter of how the circumstances play out. But I'm all but certain one of those is going to happen. 17-8 on 6 units or higher. So very strong plays on that of late. So looking forward to another big week, Ross.
Sounds like it, and sounds like you are getting tuned in to Major League Baseball, and that's some pretty good NBA runs as well. I don't want to overshadow because I've been red hot. Doug has been solid right along. I mean, I would take those numbers in a second. It's just that it happens to be I'm just red hot right now, 40-22 during the playoffs, postseason, I should say, because since the play-in tournament began. Also, not only 40-22, 6-0 in the last 6, 13-4 in the last 17, and 23-8 with my last 31 in the NBA playoffs. So I would consider that dialed in, right, Doug? So anyway,
Yeah, I'd say so.
all sports, I need to pick it up with Major League Baseball. All sports run 15-11. Dime players up 3,700, but I'm not satisfied with that. I need to pick it up. A couple baseball games went against me, but that's all part of it. We don't mention those games we win like that. You know what I mean? So in any event, for Doug Upstone, who's going to be back with us on Thursday, Doug, always a pleasure to have you aboard, my friend. And the show is much better with you than without you. And we are very lucky to have Doug along for the ride. And don't forget to visit Doug over at docsports.com. Myself, rbwins.com. That's rbwins.com. It's where you get all my premium paid selections to go to my paid clients. And also, folks, don't forget, give us a like, just a small token of your appreciation for all the hard work and preparation we put into these videos. And you have to think we're working hard, because if you've seen the results over the last 11, 12 weeks now, folks, we're now a little over 60% over that course of time. Not only me and Doug, but also Jesse and Sean as well. And speaking of Jesse and Sean, they'll be back with me tomorrow morning. And we'll be having an NBA roundtable for Game 2 of the NBA Finals between the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets. That game's going to be taking place in South Florida, venue change, and we'll see what the boys have to say about that. In any event, folks, we'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Take care. God bless. And don't do anything we wouldn't do.